Welcome to another episode of Crossroads. We're here with AC, OG, and Pilo. And we got E over there in the back, producer E. I'm grateful for his work. So we're excited, man. Another episode. We've had great season 2 already.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. I'm excited for our conversation here. A couple things to get into, but one thing we wanted to share right when we started was a recommendation for a new book that just came out, OG, right? So it's called God with Us, and I think it's a theology book. I don't know what the subtitle is, but we'll put it there on the link in the bottom. You can check it out. It's by one of my professors, David Peckham. John Peckham.
John.
Well, David Beckham was the soccer player.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Okay. You're like, I know a David Beckham. It's just not my professor.
John Peckham. But this dude is, we were just talking about seminary earlier, right? And you were kind of envious of my going there, but it's okay. No, but what's really cool about seminary is that you're, I guess it's like if you're a graduate teacher, right? Graduate school teacher, you have to be producing content, right? Literature, articles or books. So I took a class from this other guy named Darius, and he was Peckham had just come into the seminary because he was teaching in Texas at Southwestern, and he was like, "Yo, Dr. Peckham he just like vomits books out, like the way he can just write, like it's just crazy, and he's just an amazing mind." So if you check it out, it just came out. It covers theology from an Adventist worldview perspective, but very beautiful so far. It's been great. So
and the premise of it is Adventist theology, right?
Right.
And we happen to be of the Adventist faith tradition.
Right.
And I think if you were to ask a lot of Adventists, like, tell me 10 things that Adventists believe. Like, what are some of the foundations of your theology? Yeah. I think a lot of people would be like, well, they'd have a couple of big ones, Sabbath and that kind of thing.
They'd be the ones that what we do or don't do, right?
Exactly.
We don't eat pork. We don't go.
His take. He's actually a very deep writer. I read another one of his books called The Theodicy of Love, which I would also encourage you to read. And it tackles the whole question that everybody has of, if God is so good, why do so many bad things happen? Why does he allow bad things to happen if he's all powerful? Yeah. And he approaches it in a way where he tackles the question and he provides some answers, but it isn't like he comes out and says, this is why. He just says, these are some of the things or some of the reasons why maybe God doesn't always get his own way. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that kind of thing. So I would encourage you to read that book. It's a little bit... you gotta read it when you're awake. Yeah. Don't read it at night in bed when you're falling asleep. You gotta be awake.
And it's like 1 page a day type of thing.
I loaned it to a patient of mine because he and I were talking about the same topic. I'm like, I have a book. About a month later, he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna return the book." I'm like, "You finished it?" He's like, "Nah, bro, it's a little too much." It's mad deep. Yeah. So it is a little deep, but I think if you read it slow, and I'm anticipating the God with Us is probably not super shallow either.
From what I saw in the intro that he wrote, he makes his case of why he wrote it, and it's because he said when he was younger, he always asked questions, right? So one of the big questions is, why does God allow suffering, right? And so his premise is that theology is relational in the sense that many people say, "I want to follow Jesus, but I don't care about the teachings, doctrine, or theology." It says it's impossible to do that because in a relationship, right, like with your wife, with Cheryl, with your wife, with Monique, or OG with you, with our wives, we can say we love our wives, but if we don't know anything about them, we don't spend time with getting to know them, right? Is that really a relationship?
You can't love who you don't know.
Exactly. Right. So that's his point, right? Theology is relational, and so the approach he's taking, I'm very excited about, because usually it's very dogmatic, very kind of legalistic, we'd say. Sure. But he's taking a very relational approach as to the character and picture of God that we're passionate about, right? And sharing. And then he points out various people in the Bible: Moses, Abraham, Gideon, Jesus, David in the Psalms, people that ask questions, and God wasn't intimidated by it. He's like, hey, so this is a book where we're encouraging questions, but we're going to find out what those answers are through God, right? That's
exciting.
So it's very, I was like, I read just the intro today. I was like, wow, let's go.
Yeah, we ordered it. It's coming. That's going to be good.
So though, if you're the first person, how about that? First person to reach out to us.
We'll give out a free book.
We'll give it out a free book. Yeah, why not?
Book? Okay. Hey.
I'll sponsor it.
That's the first gift.
I make the most money as a pastor. I make the most money here. So if you,
that's right.
He's got great working hours. By the way.
Yeah.
So wait, what is the thing then? How do they get the book?
Well, what do we think? I mean, I'm on the spot right here. So do we first person to DM us on Instagram?
Oh, okay. How about this?
Or comment on YouTube?
I would almost say this: the first person, because we've been struggling trying to get people to give us topics. The first person to give us a topic to discuss on the show. What do you think of that? I don't know.
Well, you know how they do they do giveaways sometimes where in Instagram they say follow it, share it with someone, and then comment, right?
Yeah.
So what about this? So you got to follow us. The first person to follow us on YouTube, anywhere on podcasts.
Already following us on YouTube.
All right, well, yeah, just be following us. You got to follow us at YouTube, Instagram, and any podcast, right? So let's say Apple or Spotify, and then you got to DM us.
Okay.
And say, hey, I heard the episode. I want the book. So the first person we get, and then lastly, we're gonna double check that you tag someone on Instagram too on the comment. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So on all
you
three,
might have in the show notes. You're gonna have. You're gonna have.
So you gotta follow us on all three: Instagram, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you watch. You gotta DM us on Instagram, and then you gotta tag someone in the comments or somewhere in Instagram and on YouTube, and maybe even leave this is a plus. If you wanna, we'll throw in maybe another book. If you leave a little on Spotify, a 5-star review and a little.
I want a topic though. I'm almost saying, give us a topic.
All right, DM us a topic.
DM us a topic that you want us to touch that we've never touched.
Yeah.
And then there's a book report when you're done with the book too. You got to.
No, not we take the book back.
No, forget the book report. But
we're gonna send you 1 page a day.
That's the first giveaway, man.
All right, there we go.
God with us is
God with
John
us
Peckham.
by John Peckham.
Wow, that's a nice
And if you go over and beyond, we might throw in The Odyssey of Love. Who knows? We might,
that's nice.
We might throw it in. We'll see. We'll see how friendly you are. We'll see what the DMs look like. But
very nice.
So that's a little.
I like that. I like that. Maybe a book a season.
There you go.
Like that.
I like that. Yeah. Once we get some Crossroads shirts or something, we can do that. Yeah. But yo, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Football's back.
Oh man, football is back. Man. Football is back.
Love it. I know we can go into a whole rabbit hole here. Maybe we'll have an episode.
We should have an episode
football. But what are your thoughts, Cheryl? Just so far, it's been week one in the books.
Week one is done.
Headlines, are crazy right now. There's
yeah. So the biggest story is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
For those of you who are not huge sports fanatics, I'll break it down for you. So Aaron Rodgers, he is going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's a great quarterback, fantastic quarterback. Spent 16, maybe 15, 16 years.
Wow, that's a
long time. He got drafted in 2005.
And he sat for a year behind.
And he sat for
a year or two behind.
Like 2 or 3 years behind.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He was a kid.
Played for the Green Bay Packers. Won a Super Bowl, multiple MVPs. So, just a historic player playing on a historic franchise. This offseason, they traded him to the New York Jets. And now, if you know anything about the New York Jets, they won a Super Bowl back in the 60s. They won Super Bowl III with Joe Namath, and they haven't won a Super Bowl since.
Super Bowl III.
Super Bowl III. We're now on like Super Bowl 54 or something like that.
And they've been kind of a joke ever since.
Yeah,
like they're one of those teams. They're just never great.
Yes,
and their fans are kind of like, they have loyal fans, but there's like an underlying pessimism when you're a Jets fan.
Yeah,
it's
like being a Browns fan,
or a Detroit Lions fan, or a Jacksonville fan. Forever, we're just a bad team, right?
Yeah. Now the thing with the Jets is that every so often they get some hope. Like, oh man,
just enough.
This is it. Like
we'll be better this year.
Like we will be.
This is our year.
Good team. And every time the rug gets pulled out, it's like Charlie Brown, going to kick the football, and Lucy just pulls it away from him, and he falls on his back. Right. That is the New York Jets year after year after year.
Oh man!
And so, it's Monday night. It's the anniversary of 9/11. It's the game is in New York,
right?
And then,
it's a marquee game on the NFL calendar too. Everyone is watching this game.
The stadium is hype. All the lights are
the Bills
off.
Too.
It's playing against a really great team. The fans are just loud.
It's a New York game.
Is it two New York teams?
Or
technically, the Jets are kind of right over the thing in the Meadowlands, but they're the New York Jets.
They're the New York Jets.
Right?
When Aaron Rodgers runs out of the tunnel, he's holding a American flag, and the stadium just erupts. Because all offseason, they've been waiting for this moment for Aaron Rodgers to take the field wearing a New York Jets uniform. And their roster is a good roster. They've got a really great team.
They even had a preseason show just about the Jets.
Yeah.
It's called Hard Knocks. And it was just about the Jets.
Yeah.
There's
so much hype. So
much.
Last year, the Jets had a great roster. The quarterback play was not good. And so now that they've added Aaron Rodgers, everyone thinks
we're good.
This is it.
This is our time.
They have the missing piece. They're good to go. Snap 1, I think he gets sacked. Snap 2 is like an incomplete pass.
Or a handoff or something
or something like that. Snap 3, another busted play. Snap 4, he gets sacked.
Snap 4 his leg.
And then he stands up, takes like 1 or 2 steps.
It just sits.
And then sits down. Just sits down. And everyone's like, why is
What's
he just
going on?
sitting
And the
down?
way he sat down was like, he just sat down and was like looking around, kind of like taking the moment in.
Yeah.
Like knowing something's hurting.
Yeah.
Something happened to me, but I can't believe something just happened to me.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so he's sitting there, and the trainers come out, and everyone thinks that he may have just twisted his ankle.
That's what I thought. I thought he had a high ankle sprain. I'm like, oh, okay, he missed a couple games.
But then you start thinking about it, like, well, if it's a high ankle sprain, he would just like hobble off.
Right.
The fact that he took a couple steps and said, I cannot walk.
I can't push.
I cannot push off. I have to sit. Then it got kind of concerning. And so they carry him off. They take him into this blue tent on the sidelines to evaluate him. And then maybe 5 minutes later, they cut back, and now they've got a cart.
And a boot.
And they're loading him onto the cart because he can't walk.
Yeah.
And the stadium is,
Dead.
5 minutes ago, everyone was at an all-time high. Now they're at an all-time low.
And you got to understand, too, like when you're a sports fan and you're at the game, like those kind of things, like there's people, like, I feel like we're all pretty well balanced. For some people, like this is it.
This is it.
So when you see Aaron Rodgers,
You got a tattoo
going up
of
the
Aaron
field,
Rodgers on your
in
back
a
with
boot,
the championship.
you're thinking, this is it for me.
My life is over.
There's people who really felt like
Yeah.
everything I live for in this moment is now being taken from me.
Yes.
The hope is gone.
It's gone. I mean,
Wow.
you could see it written on their faces.
Like
The
devastation,
devastation.
bro. There
yeah.
was people probably crying. I
Yes.
didn't see it, but I'm sure they were crying.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
You got the kids crying. Like,
Yeah.
oh, man.
And so they cart him
crazy
off.
moment.
Yeah. So they cart him off to take him to the locker room. And the quarterback that they had last year is now back in the game.
That was terrible.
That was terrible. Is back in the game. And you can just see on the Jets' faces, they're like,
What?
this is like
Well,
this.
imagine the fans too, and imagine being that quarterback. His name was Zach Wilson, coming out on the field knowing all 80,000 of these people
They don't want you.
wish you were not playing.
Yeah. They came to see not you.
Your replacement.
Yes.
But now it's your turn.
Now it's you
Can you
again.
imagine that?
Man.
That's gotta feel pretty terrible.
It's got to feel so rough.
Everyone that's there is mad that you're
That
actually
you're
playing.
actually,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
everything you
Like-
do, it's like, ugh, great.
And you can't make a mistake if you're Zach Wilson. Because
second you do.
The second you do, here we go again.
Yeah.
And they're booing you.
Yeah.
And so, they're playing a really good team in the Buffalo Bills. And they get down 13-3. And everyone, down 13-3 at halftime, everyone's like, oh, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
They cut to the halftime show. And they're saying, yeah, they're thinking that it's an Achilles.
Man.
And, if it's a high ankle sprain, okay, he'll be
miss
out
a couple
for a few
weeks, 2 or
weeks.
3 weeks maybe.
Then he comes
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And you still have a chance at a good season.
Right.
An Achilles for a 39-year-old.
It's like Kobe
You're like,
right there.
man.
There's been, I
that's-
think, 2 players in the NFL, in the history of the NFL, that have ever
Have
come
come
back
back
from
from
an
an
Achilles. They were both running backs. And even one of them, it's kind of like,
You're never. It's like you're never 100%.
you're
Yeah.
never the same.
Yeah.
And at that level of competition.
So,
after
OG,
that.
just from a PT point, a standpoint, what is it? Just the amount of wear and tear on his body.
There's just so
'Cause
much
it didn't
force.
seem like an I mean, when they replay it,
Yeah.
it looks like just all right. It's an awkward placement.
It's interesting if you're thinking about it from a rehab standpoint. There had been some issues with his calf in preseason that they had talked about, that he was having some calf issues. We do know that if you get a lot of cortisone injections over the course of your career, it does weaken connective tissue, right? So I don't know if maybe there was some underlying issue where he had been getting injections in his calf or in that area or in
And
in
then
that
it's just
area.
weak, and then
or if he had a history of chronic tendonitis or tendinosis in the Achilles. There might have been some underlying conditions going before, but if you land the wrong way and you try to push with a 200-pound, 300-pound person on top of you, the failure rate for the Achilles, it could happen when people playing pickleball.
Well,
you step wrong and you push, boom, there it goes. Like,
and that's what's crazy to me that we don't see more injuries.
Yeah.
Most people that I've seen with those,
football.
it's very innocuous. It's like, I was playing pickleball and all of a
Just
sudden I felt like
random.
someone
Like
shot
someone
me in my
kicked
leg,
it, and no one's
and
around.
I couldn't move. Or I was playing soccer and I hadn't played for a year and I went out and tried to kick and I
Jeez.
pushed, and so imagine now the force of someone on top of you and you kind of push. It'd be easy to happen. I'm surprised it didn't happen more.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the amount of scuffles and things that happen, right, where it's everyone just falls on top of each other and then they get up. I was like, dude, how did nobody's leg just All it takes is like one, a linebacker to just land on your knee this way.
How many times has he been tackled? I have to believe there might have been some underlying pathology of that Achilles.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, for it just to go like that.
They never got to the point where it is now, but
and he's 39. I mean, there's a difference between 29 and 39 when it comes to soft tissue.
So if you're a Jets fan, our hearts are with you.
Yeah, man, pour one out for the Jets. Pour a little orange juice.
A little orange juice.
A little.
But see, you know what was interesting about this whole story though?
What's that?
They were down 13-3. They ended up coming back and winning the game.
They won the game.
They won the game.
They beat the
Bills. And what a testament to like even in the face of adversity, if you're on that team and you realize, man, we just lost maybe our hope for this season. They didn't quit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They didn't quit. And they won in spectacular fashion.
Oh, man.
The highlights.
That was just
it was awesome.
I was watching.
I was like, is this really gonna happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened.
I was just watching the game because I kind of felt bad for Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
I actually felt bad for the Jets, and I never thought I'd say that.
Yeah.
I'm actually feeling bad for the Jets.
And I was like, man, like this is just rough. And so I was rooting for them. I wanted them to win that game just because I felt bad for them.
Yeah, and for the fans, man, that were there,
yeah. And so I'm watching it, and they were down 13-3, and they start coming back. They eventually tie the game, and I was like, oh, okay, they have a chance. The game goes into overtime, and I'm like, I should go to bed. Like
it was late.
It's late.
It was late.
I got work in the morning. I should go to bed.
Man. Yeah, it's hard.
The Bills get the ball first. They punt, and the guy takes the punt all the way back, and the stadium goes from 0 right back to where it was.
They're high, man.
They're crazy.
Yeah.
The refs are like, we're not going to review anything. Just whatever.
No.
We feel bad. This might be the only win you get this year. So.
Yeah. No, but at least they persisted.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Yeah, there are a lot of lessons there to learn, but football's back, so we're excited now. Yeah. Great convos there. So we'll put that information there. We can put a link maybe to the injury.
No doubt.
For the book.
For the what?
For the injury.
Yeah, right.
OG can put some things you can do to strengthen your Achilles.
You've seen that guy on YouTube, like the medical doctor that he always breaks down sports injuries.
Oh, there's tons of PTs, and I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah,
and there's tons of PTs on all these different podcasts talking about return to fields. And obviously, we haven't examined the patient, but you can have an idea. Hey, when someone has kind of an injury,
looks like.
Usually they'll be 2 to 3 weeks. They'll retest it on the field, see how it feels, and then you can.
That's me every Sunday. I'm like, John.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
And then before they announce it. Oh, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
So how many weeks do you think?
Gives you an idea.
Yeah. What's the range? What can I expect? Should I drop him from my fantasy? Or?
Right. Is it worth keeping? Nah. He's done.
I got my consultant there, but that's funny. That's good. But yeah, football's back.
It's back. So, we're excited about it.
Yo, OG, so you want to talk about something? And I mean, we have a couple things we can talk about, right? We talked about aliens, our first episode, and if you're watching today is September 14th.
September 13th.
Which happens, it's interesting because September 14, 15, Mexico, and it's important days for us. So, but in Mexico and Peru, I don't know what really, but they found supposedly 2 aliens. Kind of crazy stuff.
Go online if you haven't seen the video.
Go online, check it out. I don't know if it's worth our time to discuss
Mexican
that.
Alien.
Mexican alien.
No, don't type that because you're gonna get a bunch of.
You might get
type in aliens found in Mexico.
Oh my,
But it looks super cheesy.
Yeah, it looks like.
I kind of wanted.
What did you say? It looked like
it looked like paper mache.
Yes.
It looked like something that you would do
like
for
a piñata.
Yeah.
It looked like a piñata.
It looked like some kid just
they
did that. They hit it, and then they hit it because their mom said you can't bring it home, and then some people were like, "We found the aliens," and they're like, "Mom,
we made that.
That's my project."
Right on TV.
On TV.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
They're unboxing it, so I don't think we want to talk about it, but interesting things that happened there. With Aaron. But you had another topic you have been...
it's funny because sometimes you guys ever get caught like in a rabbit hole where you're on Instagram or YouTube and you're watching something, and someone I've been following lately, and I listen to him because he says a lot of stuff that makes sense. I actually enjoy a lot of what he says. Is Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
And he's different. He's a different cat, and he's some he's very controversial because he says stuff.
I gotta look up.
You wonder sometimes how much of what he's saying he really believes and how much he's saying it just to be contrarian, right?
To get his.
He's very conservative and he's very anti-liberal agenda, wokeism, if you want to use that term or whatever.
Psychologist.
He's a psychologist from Canada. Actually, he's in the middle of this issue with Canada right now because they're trying to censor him in Canada, and they're actually trying to take away his license because of some of the stuff that he said, and they're going to put him through like a cultural sensitivity training program to see if they can, otherwise he'll lose his license.
Oh wow.
He's been saying things. Yeah.
But in Canada it tends to be a little bit stricter, I think, about stuff more like that than the US. But so I started watching some of his videos because I like some of the stuff he says. He does have he's very opinionated, but some of the stuff he says, it's like, okay, that's deep, and I can get down with that. Well, because of that, I've been seeing a lot of things pop up on my feed, about masculinity and toxic masculinity and what that even means, and what does it mean in 2023 to be masculine, and is that something that's under attack? Because everything is under attack now, right? Whatever it is, right? It's under attack. We mentioned that last week. But I wanted to see what you guys thought when you guys hear that term, which I think sometimes we're in a little bit of a bubble. We all have families and we're working and we're doing our thing. But outside of our sphere here, that's kind of a big thing, right? Feminism and masculinity and what's healthy, what's not healthy, and that kind of a thing. But this term, toxic masculinity, has kind of been coming up over the years. When you hear that term, before we even get into what we think about it, what comes to your mind? What are you prompted by? When you hear that term, like, what do you feel?
So what do I think and what do I feel?
How do you feel about the term? Do you think it's a term that is it just kind of like first of all, I think it's kind of like a first world problem, right? I bet you go to other countries, like, what are you talking about? Yeah. But like, do you feel like it's an appropriate term, or do you think it's something that's kind of fabricated and it's not really a real thing? It's just something that's made by mainstream agenda to just kind of create another division.
The MSM, mainstream media.
Yeah, the mainstream media.
So I feel like there are certain aspects of it that have validity. I think looking at how men were how men were expected to behave, or things that men were expected to do in a different time period, putting those expectations on men in a different era or in a different culture. If they don't do that, then they are less of a man.
Okay.
I think that can be very detrimental. I think you have to take everything in context. You have to look at the context in which that individual is living. You have to look at their life experience, and so you can't take a blanket, a brush and paint it over everybody and say you all must act this way, you all must do this, you all have to follow these specific things. So when I hear toxic masculinity, part of me kind of pushes back on that a little bit. But I do think that there are also some good points in there where there are certain things that that they people that talk about toxic masculinity point out, hey, we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't be carrying ourselves this way or behaving in this manner. So I think that there's, just like everything else, I feel like it's become so polarized. They're trying to make it black or white. I feel like it's more of there's more of a gray.
Okay.
And I think you have to live more in the gray than in a black and white.
What do you think? And also maybe we should even define, like, what do you even think masculinity is? Jordan to then know what toxic could be like, right?
That's probably good. We need to define that. Sure, you want to try to define what? Or from your perspective.
So I would describe it as toxic masculinity being overly.
Well, define what's masculinity to you. Like when someone says, "Hey, this person is very masculine," because I think in order for us to really identify what toxic or what a negative version of that would be, it'd be good to describe what masculine is. What masculinity is like.
So I would say kind of like the gender norms. Okay. So a male is somebody that is going to be physical, physicality.
And they're gonna whether that be is an answer, or if you got to use your force to do something.
Yeah, so they're not going to be as in touch with emotions.
Okay,
they'd be more whether for good or for bad. Doing things that require strength or require a lot of force. I would even say being shouldering a lot of responsibility,
right? Okay,
maybe even more so, shouldering responsibility than feminism.
Sure,
right.
So I would say that though, like when you hear masculine, those are kind of some of the
first things that kind of pop into your head. It's a very difficult thing to describe, without using the word, right? Without saying masculine. How do you describe it, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
But I think, I think, well, obviously the people that will share these ideas wouldn't refer to themselves as being toxic masculinity. They just say mainstream media labeled me as this, right? But yeah, I think that, like Cheryl said, that whenever I see someone communicating this way, or using terms like that we would fit in under this umbrella of toxic masculinity, right? Like you're saying, right? Trying to use violence as an answer, trying to go to, patriarchy, the man runs the house. Women go make me a sandwich, you belong in the kitchen. Right.
Those
I'm
ideas.
in charge. I'm the one, I do this and that. I cringe automatically. Even though I'm born and raised in a culture, Mexican culture, that's very machista, which is the word that we would use for very like man dominant. But we all know, and even in Mexican home, no matter how machista you are, the woman runs the show. Right. But the woman allows you to say,
pretend that you're right.
My dad would always had a bunch of jokes like that too. But I think it's and I do like the term toxic masculinity because like Cheryl said, I think there's always going to be some element of truth mixed in there, right? You look biblically, and I think there's been so many conversations, and it's been mostly misused. But when you talk about submission, you talk about the man being the head of the household, right? The priest of the house. I mean, there's validity, and there's a space that we need to see where that is, because maybe in a lot of homes, in reality, it's the mother that does a lot of the spiritual nurturing. As opposed to the man, but the man kind of usually takes that as like, whatever I say goes, right? So I think, so there's elements of truth in it. I just think it's taken to an extent, and I don't justify it, but I understand why, because it's a reaction to the time we're living in, right? And so it's the same thing that happened, post-slavery and through the civil rights, right? There was a change in the norm where Black people were allowed to now be integrated into society. And so you have now a population that we're used to seeing minorities in different capacities now getting the same job that I can. And so this is not, there has to be a pushback, right? So I think now when you see women in the workforce, right, and men now staying home, right, which would be as a weak thing to be seen, right, or even you see, where we are now more aware of the LGBTQ, right, of their community and their plight, and wherever we stand in that, right, whether we're upset that they have so much attention, or we're thankful that at least, hey, there's whatever representation, right. But I think it's just the cultural change in our world that has come to this point in our Western world where people are like, we need to go back to the good old days, right? And to me, it goes back, it's cringy to like we haven't gotten into this as much, but to the MAGA slogan, right? Make America great again, which I'm like, well, it's always when was it great? Right. At what point? Because at some point in history, it wasn't great for someone. And so if you want to go back there, so that's kind of, to me, naturally, I see that. I see some of the guys that headline that, even though I don't listen to all of them, like Jordan Peterson, or the guy that got arrested, that Andrew Tate, or different others that are kind of the prominent voices. I just immediately kind of am turned off by it, even though they might have some elements that I'm like,
it seems like, go ahead, man.
No, I was kind of what you were referencing just now. His name is escaping me. The UFC fighter that just fought Adesanya.
Sean Taylor. Sean
Spencer.
No,
Sean.
Strickland.
Sean Strickland. So I don't know if you saw. He had
he's
a press
troll
conference.
though.
He's a troll. He's absolutely a troll. But I
didn't see this though. I didn't see.
So you got to check. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. He was saying that he and again, I think it's a troll.
Some
job.
of it is it's almost like WWE. Yeah, how many people can I get to not like me? To be the heel, a heel.
But he was saying, we need to, our society is crumbling because of the fact that we've got women in the workforce.
Women instead of raising the kids at home.
Right. So women are working, men are working. Who's raising the kids? Like the women need to get out of the workforce, stay at home, stay in the kitchen. Like these are the things that he was saying.
Right.
And just like you were saying, like hearing that, you're just like, oh man, that doesn't.
Yeah.
Now, even though I don't agree with that statement, I think there may be a nugget of truth in the fact that society may be crumbling to a certain extent because you don't have someone at home training the kids. Doesn't mean that it has to be the woman,
right.
But if the parents are not raising the kids, who's raising the kids?
There's more kids raising themselves than there might have been 50, 60, 70 years ago.
So there's a nugget of truth.
It's just the way he presents it.
But the way it's presented,
exactly.
I think my thing. You had your point.
Well, I was just going to say, do you guys feel like this happens so much in society? Where do you feel like masculinity is under attack? Because that what happens is whenever you have a group of people or anything under attack, it always gives rising to the polar opposite in an extreme to the 10 form, right? So then you have these hardcore alpha males on Instagram and YouTube. There was an article you shared where they're just like, I only eat beef.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I only eat meat. And they're just like hardcore and like, you know,
King.
and like they're just so hardcore over the top. It's almost like a character of what it would be like. And it's in response to their feelings that masculinity is under attack in America, right? Where they want everyone to be soft and weak and not masculine, and how being masculine now is something you have to hide versus just being. Right. So I think it's a response to that.
Exactly. I think that's, you know, every through history you'll see always responses, right? So there's a movement, a reaction. Yeah. Same thing with our generations, right? So you see maybe our parents. And even, you know, our parents too, and the generations after us, we're all a reaction to the generations before, right? That's why our generation has kids later, because we saw how hard it was for our parents, and so we're like, hey, you know, we don't even have kids now, so I can't even talk in that realm, right? But it's like, I think every generation has to goes through those things. I think for me though, when I see it, I'm always drawn back to, okay, what does the Bible teach, right? Because it can be really easy to get caught up in. Then I'm like, I start siding more with, all right, let me side with the other, you know, people against alphamism, alpha, whatever, right? And so, but then you begin to kind of take in everything that the other side's giving you, right? So it's like, okay, how do I go back, you know, to get centered and see, okay, what is Jesus? And I was having a conversation with someone last week about that, where similar things, right? I want you know, I want to be able to be a strong man, right? And I'm like, well, talk to me more. What does that look like?
Right. Define that.
And because for me, I wasn't raised in a household that was about using force or violence, even having guns or anything like that in that realm. I'm not throwing all that together. I'm just saying we weren't.
That wasn't.
It just wasn't. There wasn't. You know, violence was always. There's no need for violence, and there's never the answer, right? Now, if you're getting attacked and, you know, whatever, it's a different thing. But trying to figure out, okay, where are you coming from, what is going on, and what are you looking for? And I think a lot of times with this alpha, I think it's like fanning the flame of your ego in a sense, right? Where it's like, yeah, I want to go home and I want my wife to do what I want her to do, and I want her to make me a sandwich, and I'm mad that now they have a voice. So to me, and maybe I'm already seeing it more in a negative light, and I'm like, I don't even want to sit down and have a conversation, because I'm like, but I do. And I'll let you guys talk. I do think there is a space that is lacking for true biblical manhood, a conversation on what true biblical manhood looks like. Yeah. Because we have too many explanations or mansplanations of biblical manhood and what that looks like, and it's usually on, you know, your wife's got to submit to you. You know, it's very
right. Whenever you hear about that, it's always that text.
Exactly. It's that
you know,
text.
Wives must submit to their husbands.
And Adam was made first. Eve was from his rib, and it's like we lose the idea that the Bible is trying to present, that it's moving us forward to, you know, equality and to this. It's not, you know, like we know Eve wasn't made from the top of his head or from his feet, but from the rib, because hey, we're co-partners, we're equals, right? So I think it's always trying to figure that out, but it can be it's a tough.
It's just I think society too has just gotten it so messed up, where like feminism and masculinity, like they're supposed to complement each other, right? In such a way where it becomes the best version of that unity. And it's almost like we're becoming more masculine diminishes feminism, or becoming more feminist now diminishes masculinity. Right. Where it's like, why can't you both be strong together, right? Why does it have to be I'm a feminist, so then I'm anti-masculinity, or I'm a masculine, I'm anti-feminist? You know what I mean? Why can't you know what I mean? Because it's never like equal. It's always like, how can I raise one?
It's like a pie, right? So it's like if you look at life that way, and that this people look at it all through history like that the pie, it's always been this way, and men get 75% of the pie, everyone else gets the rest. The moment someone starts taking from your idea of a pie, then you get now 50, 55, 45. I mean, that's too close. Yeah. And so but I think that's because we're looking at life in the wrong way. Whereas we have to realize we're all broken, and we're trying to get to what a perfect human being looks like. That's in Jesus. Yeah. And for men, that benefits us because he's a man, right? So we can see what a perfect man looks like. Not that it benefits us more.
But it's funny because we can see that. But then when your mind, and I challenge anyone listening to the podcast, when you think of Jesus, who we believe that he was like.
He's not an alpha male.
He's not an alpha male. No, you smack me on the right cheek, I'm going to give you the left.
Right.
You want my clothes, here it is.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It was a constant life.
He's soft.
He's soft.
He's soft. Yeah.
Because he's soft according to our standards of what masculinity should look like, right?
That's powerful. Yeah.
So we're saying he's soft, but is he soft?
But he's not soft.
He's soft by, you know, he was willing to go the extra mile and give and care and love. And I think in our society, right, that's seen as soft. We all just felt it right now. We're like, yeah, he was soft.
Yeah.
But if he's our example of
it's like we're like backwards, right? We got to flip it, and then we'd see that we're
too hard.
We're soft. If you think about it, right? Maybe our idea of like what it means, whatever, right? But it's just like we got to flip the paradigm,
right?
And that's where Jesus says, "My kingdom, it's not of this world. It's different." Yeah. And you're not gonna like it. I mean, because it's not. We're not gonna take over the Romans right now.
No.
He's like, that's what he says when they're about to arrest him. Peter's like, "Let's go."
He's like, that was not
probably
what
the perfect toxic masculine character right there. Yeah. Talks whenever he says whatever he thinks. He wants to fight. Solve it with my fist.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're not gonna do that, Jesus. Not on my watch. You're not dying.
No, not Jesus, today.
He's like, get back, bro. Relax.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, oh shoot.
It's a perfect example of like what Jesus was wanting to emulate to us, to men and women, was a life of giving and submission versus trying to dominate and power and overpower.
Right. Well, if you look at the Bible, and you mentioned earlier trying to define masculinity and femininity through a biblical lens, I think one of the easiest ways to do that is to look at how God describes the church and his relationship to the church. He describes it as a marriage relationship, and so he refers to the church as his bride, and to him as the husband or the bridegroom. And so obviously, the bridegroom is the male, the bride would be the woman, and he doesn't go about bringing in the church or bringing people into the church by force and by dragging them, kicking and screaming, and threatening them with violence to join.
Right.
He's like, no. I'm going to love you. I'm going to show you self-sacrifice. I'm going to show you patience. I'm going to show you kindness. And just like you mentioned, if I were to tell anybody walking down the street, hey, there's this guy and he's super patient and self-sacrificing and kind and humble.
I mean, like, he's a doormat. He's a doormat.
Yeah, he's too soft.
He's soft. I don't want to talk to that guy. He's soft.
He's soft. Yeah.
They would view that individual as soft, but those are the exact qualities that God shows to the church, and that's what he's calling men to be.
Right.
All of us to be, but absolutely.
But men. I mean, that's
true
solid.
True men.
That's solid.
True manliness, man. I was just pulling up the text there, right? And we always just quote, wives submit to your husband. And we forget the text where it's like, husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it, right? And it's like there's more towards the man. We just take that one verse.
It's because
and then we mean submit means make me a sandwich, right? And
do what I say when I say what I want.
Yeah, I'm like, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's funny because the only reason that he's I wouldn't say commanded, but asking the wives to submit to the husband is because the husband is submitting to God.
Right.
And so if the husband's not submitting to God, the wife should not submit to the husband.
Yeah.
Right.
And the husband gave himself. So
exactly.
It's a mutual thing.
It's a relationship.
It's a relationship.
If you see me giving you 100% in our friendship and you give me 100%, like, it's going to be a great friendship, right?
Yeah.
But what I will say, I'll give out, this alpha male, toxic masculinity, whatever it is this, at the core, they're answering the question, is there a display of true masculinity in this world, right? Or maybe they're saying the statement, there is a lack of true masculinity in this world. And I think that's true. I think you have a lot of men that maybe what you would say maybe aren't stepping up to the plate, or aren't, for various reasons, right, going through their trauma and what their upbringing, what they face, what the norms that are upon them that they have to work through, right? We're not taught to really work with our emotions, how to communicate, how to be real about what we're feeling, right? So I think there is a place that we need to address all those things. But it's just how you address that, right? And what that looks like. What gets me, though, is the impact that these influencers and people have unmistakably on undeniably, not just on men like ourselves, right? Young adult men, but on children, right? I mean, I was reading about a teacher talking about telling some students, you're going to do your homework and bring it tomorrow. And she said, no, I'm the alpha. The kid said. He's like, in 6th grade.
It's like, what are you talking about?
He said, I'm an alpha. I don't do nothing. I don't listen to women. And you're like, what?
Like, where'd you get that from?
And he might be applauded by, I don't know. He might be applauded by some of the guys. Yeah, don't take anything that they tell you. Like you're the boss. You're in control. And so what you're doing is you're setting them up for failure.
Misapplication of
either they'll be humbled in some way and hurt and then hurt others, or they'll join a group that believes this wholeheartedly and continue to
that
cycle. Right. And so to me, it's sad because they just take these, and it feeds us. I mean, it's about me. And that's the problem I have with pornography too, and that whole industry. It's that it's male dominant, and it's creating false expectations for the marriage bed and for actual sex and what it's designed to be and what it was, made for. That the woman is there to please you, right? And it's self-serving. It's about you. And if it ain't working for you, then you find someone else. And so it's like, to me, a lot of it just boils down to, what's the root of this and what's the fruit? What's the root and what's the fruit, right? And you see the fruit of this usually doesn't turn out to be good, right? It's not that you have, you see them, they might not be married, or maybe if they are, their wives are just bought into the same theology that I'm here just to solely fulfill my husband's desires. And I'll be at home. You come home. I'm gonna rub your feet. In the imaginary world, you're like, wow, this is cool, right?
But in reality, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Exactly.
That would not appeal to me at all.
But it appeals to the little kids that that are growing up and they say, hey, these guys are saying, I got all the cars, I'm an athlete. Look at my body. I'm ripped, and I get all the women I want whenever I want. If I don't need them, I find the next one. I put them out. And so it's just, to me, it's like the impact that those voices have, which that's why I'm saying I think we need more space for true biblical manhood to be shared in a way that's relevant. Because a lot of time it's over the heads, and especially of the kids coming in. I had to hear it. I was teaching Sabbath school with Chantal, right? And I started teaching. Chantal came a little later, and then she started teaching. And I was like, okay, cool. We're doing this together. We're a team, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, you got it. I'm going to head down. I got to do it. And one of the kids is like, oh, you're going to let that? I wouldn't let that fly if I was me.
You're like, what are you talking about? You're like, let what fly?
He's like, you going to take that? I was like, what are you talking about?
Take what?
What are you talking Like, this is my wife. Like, we're a team. He's like, nah, but that couldn't be me. And so you see him saying, like,
you almost want to stop the Sabbath school and be like, let's unpack this. What are you talking about?
I was like, bro, what are you talking about, bro? You want a strong woman by your side that's going to be able to call you out when you mess up. Like, it's not a nice life to just be.
No. I think people have an idea.
To me, it's accountability, too. You don't have accountability. You're just able to do whatever you want.
They have an idea of what they want. Yeah. But they really don't know what they want.
Or how to truly fulfill that
what you really want, Because that'd be terrible. A one-sided, one-way relationship.
Some people, they get off or they want that. That's their idea of life, right? It's that picture that it's been the picture since all the time from Abraham and the Bible all the way now, where God's trying to work and say, no, women aren't property. They're not second-class or third-class citizens. They're not, as we treated black people, a fifth or a third of a human being. They are just as much human as a male is, right? And so
I read something. It was either yesterday or the day before. It was very interesting. And they mentioned, when you look in the Bible, it seems like a lot of times the men had to go somewhere or do something to get into God's presence. So like Moses had to go up the mountain, or Moses again had to go out into the wilderness and then, the burning bush. But women, like, God came to them, like, they're just working in the house, and then an angel shows up and appears in the house, and repeat. There's stories, you see different stories of that. And it was saying, that it shows you the importance of the woman and how valued the woman is. That God is like, I will come to you. Like,
the Bible is full of that.
It's stuff, full of that.
It's breaking the norms. The social norms.
Exactly. And so this concept or this idea that the men have to have everything served to them, and that you need to come to me and and do what I want, fill my bidding. That is not the picture that the Bible shows. The Bible shows the complete opposite of that. Yeah. And I think that, like we were just mentioning, that is true masculinity.
Yeah. But we do, I think, as a church, need to do a better job of, because the reality is, if you're not answering those questions in a place where we would say is designed to answer those questions in a biblical and Christ-like way, you're looking for that somewhere else. So you come to church as a man, you're like, this is lovey-dovey. I'm not feeling it. My wife likes it, okay. but where do I
fit
filled,
in?
right?
Yeah.
That's where you're like with the dudes, with the guys, and you start hearing this alpha man. It's like, you're right.
Yeah.
I was called to be, man, tough to the stone. It's kind of DNA of our country, right? It's like, hey, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But I did want to read. This is one of my favorite quotes from Ellen White, when she's talking about Samson, and she says that strength of character consists of two things: power of will and power of self-control. Because she's looking at the life of Samson and how Samson didn't have self-control, but he was the strongest man, but he just whoever he liked and whatever he wanted. Hey, go get me that woman, right? And it's like, okay, wow. And God's like, I got plans for you, bro.
Right. We had something going here. What are you doing?
So he ties in it. So it literally kind of talks to masculinity, right? He whatever he wants, he gets it, right? If he doesn't get it,
he takes it.
He puts the fire on the fox's tails, burns everything, takes the doors from the big city. I mean, it's like. He's mad.
He was unhinged.
He was unhinged. This guy was just an alpha male that was the typical. If he was alive today, everyone would be like, I want to be like him, bro. Look how big and muscular he is. But it says, many people mistake strong, uncontrolled passion for strength of character. But the truth is that he who is mastered by his passions is a weak man. The real greatness and nobility of the man is measured by his power to subdue his feelings, not by the power of his feelings to subdue him. The strongest man is he who, while sensitive to abuse, will yet restrain passion and forgive his enemies. That's powerful stuff.
It's just like a character.
It's a total switch on what true strength is, right? And that's why Paul says, hey, the message we preach is foolishness and weakness. Because it's, to the world and to the Gentiles, it's countercultural. It's not going to make sense, right? In Revelation, we have a lamb that's shows up to the throne room as the one that's been killed, right? He doesn't show up as like a mighty conqueror, like, let's do it, even though he is, right? So it's a total shift of that. Obviously, a lot to unpack, but
but no, I think it's something. I'm glad we mentioned it, and it'd be nice to see the church. I don't know how that looks. Right. I don't know how that looks, but I think it is something that to be talked about, right? And then, and making sure that there's a space for that kind of discussion in church.
It's definitely necessary. I mean, if you look at and not any particular denomination, but just the Protestant movement as a whole, it's predominantly, the membership is predominantly women, right? It's I should say majority women, and I think a lot of that goes to what you were saying. The message of the Bible is counter to what society tells you a man should look like, and so as a man, sometimes it can be tough to sit down and say, you want me to be like Jesus, but Jesus is out here washing people's feet and getting spit on and slapped. You tell me that I gotta do that? That doesn't fly with me. I'm used to being the one that is, you're causing a problem. I'm stepping in and shutting things down. I want to do something about it. Right.
And solving. And it might be cool with Jesus and just not cool with how we do church, right? If you think, I was just thinking now, like, think about Jesus and the disciples. They were walking, building stuff, when they were moving, go with the little tents or whatever, and they're fishing, right? They're literally doing
manly things.
From what we know, we know there was women all around. They had a team there, but they were doing these manly quote unquote things where they were continuing to be able to do that, where they felt fulfilled. And maybe that's where we got to do better as a church, to be able to say, okay, how do we, bring the spiritual life into things that quote unquote really fulfill you as a man, right? And maybe that's, I don't know, whatever that looks like, right? One of the cool things we've done is doing those biking trips to North Carolina with some of the guys, right? So you get random guys that Jeff knows and some of the guys here, and it's just a guys trip, and you get out there and you're just having fun riding bikes. We have good conversations. So it's like figuring out, okay, how do we
examples of Christian,
right? Of what true, what does that look like? Hey, we don't drink. Yeah, we're not smoking. Nah, we don't. But we can still enjoy it. Whatever what that looks like, right? And I think that
modeling what that looks like.
I like that. But I think for sure we need to have more spaces for that. That's a good. Got a lot to think about there.
I agree.
Good stuff.
Toxic masculinity. Yeah. All right, moving into our talking point of the night. Who will be saved in the final judgment?
That's well,
just threw it out there. So who's gonna make it?
Who's gonna make it? It's funny because
it gives us an answer too. So
for me, like growing up in the church, it almost seemed like the idea was that you had to do certain things or behave a certain way, and then you get to hope that you get saved.
It's like your good outweighs your bad.
I'm hoping it works out, and that kind of thing. And as I've matured and gotten older in my faith and understood things better, salvation is a person. Salvation is assured to you, right? It's not like I hope God saves me.
Right.
No. He's going to save you. If you allow him, he will save you, right? If you want it. So, and it's one of those things where you then behave and live a life in a way because you are saved, not hoping to be saved. So I have no question about my salvation because I'm not saving myself.
Right.
I can't save myself. I'm saved because of a person.
Right.
And he saved me. He died so that I could live, right? So I think when you understand it from that perspective, you can live a life free of the worry, am I going to be saved? I know I'm saved. I was saved when he died for me and sacrificed himself for me. So then I can live from that freedom. And I think as a Christian, that's a beautiful thing, is to live from that place of knowing that you're saved and you're free versus hoping that I can do the right thing. And if I behave a certain way, maybe when he comes, he'll save me. No. He's coming to get me because he died for me.
I know he's coming.
I know he's coming. So I think it's who's going to be saved is those who believe and trust in God, in the salvation and the provision of God to save them.
That's it.
That's who it is. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's simpler than we often think. Like, it's like the Bible says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whosoever believes in him will live. You know what I mean? So it's like, just believe and then live from that place of belief.
Yeah.
And just know that you don't have to worry about your salvation because you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's been done for you.
That's good.
It's a gift.
That's good.
Yeah.
So Saturday afternoon, we were at Tom and Abby's house.
Shout out.
For those of you watching, Tom was the guest that we had, our first guest. And if you remember at the end of the episode, we said we got to get over to his house for a potluck. We made it.
It was a good potluck.
It was good.
That
it was
good. Yeah.
And a similar question came up at the table. And my response then and my response now is this. When I was younger, when I was a kid, growing up in this faith tradition, I always wrongly thought that those that would be saved would be those that believed just like I believed. If you didn't believe like I believed, if you believed a little bit, or if you had what some might say some of the truth but not all of the truth, then you were doomed. As I've grown older, I don't subscribe to that thought anymore. Anyone who accepts the gift of salvation will be saved. It is a gift. It is free. There is nothing you can do to earn it. There's no work that you can put in to justify it. It is a gift given by God. All you have to do is accept it. Anyone who says, yes, I accept it, and they are sincere about that, I believe will be saved. Doesn't matter what you've done, where you come from, what your family lineage is. None of that matters. All that matters is, do you accept the gift of salvation? And if you do, God is, just like you said, God is, he will do everything to save you.
That freedom to live by. I love it. The thing said here, those that repent, believe, and live for Jesus, right? And I think that's one thing I've been kind of thinking about, that repenting part too. I think sometimes we as a church, we take it, we OD it, and right, and it's like, you're not repentive enough to to do it, right? But I think there is that, we're talking about toxic masculinity. I think it works, right, where we've probably at some point had to make a decision. Hey, we're not going to define our manhood by the world's worldview, but by God's. And to me, that's a repenting point where it's like we've been living this way, but I'm going to turn from that, which is literally what the word is in the original language. It's a turning and facing a different direction and saying, God, I want actually what you're providing, right? And I'm repenting of turning from where I was headed to another direction, believing in you that what you've done for me has granted me this gift of eternal life. And I'm going to live in the freedom and that reality that I'm already a citizen of that kingdom, right? So I think it's a beautiful picture that it's like renouncing, like Paul says, right? When I was a child, I thought like a child, but now when I became a man, I put away childish things, right? And it's like, okay, for him, obviously, maybe talking more spiritually speaking, right? But interesting that, even there, Paul's saying, hey, and he's being beat up and persecuted and all that. And for him, he's like, I take pride and joy in being persecuted for Jesus, right? And so it's a beautiful thing there. But yeah, I think it's to me it's summarized in something C.S. Lewis says, that at the end of time there's going to be two types of people: those to whom God looks at, and God looks at these people and says, your will be done, and those whom look at God and say, your will be done, right? And so we all know that God wants us all to go to heaven, but he can't force us. And so it's beautiful there at the end. There's only two types of people: those that God says, all right, if you don't want to be with me, that's fine. Here you go. But those that want to be with me will be with me, right? So I think it's a beautiful promise there. Yeah.
I love the story too of the thief on the cross, man. You know what I mean? Like, the thief on the cross said, "Hey, I believe," and he said, "Surely today you'll be with me in my kingdom." Like, it's one of those things where it's like,
you got it.
The thief on the cross wasn't one of the disciples. No, he didn't know the Beatitudes. He missed the Sermon on the Mount.
The trajectory of his life wasn't like, oh, he's gonna be good
on the cross. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have a name. You know what I mean? Like, all he did is accept. I want to be, and Jesus said, "Okay, you're with me."
Who are you? He's like, man,
you know what I'm saying? Like.
It's so interesting.
It's a beautiful. And that story's there for us.
That breaks a lot of our understanding of salvation. Of salvation,
too, we're like, wait, but no, but he wasn't baptized.
He didn't get baptized.
He wasn't baptized.
Do a Bible study.
And
it's funny.
He didn't prove that he was changed.
No, he just said, "Okay, I believe."
He's like, I want to go.
I want to go.
Can I come too?
Sure.
So that kid's like, we're all going. Can I come?
I tell you guys that somebody wrote this in a book. I think I might have mentioned this in one of the first seasons, where like this, it was a story of a guy in heaven. And someone was like, "Hey, like, who are you? Like, how'd you get here?" And it's the thief on the cross. And he goes, "I don't know." He's like, that man said I could come.
Mercy. Yeah.
He said I could come. Yeah. So I'm here.
I'm gonna figure out what this all about.
I'm gonna learn about this man that saved me now.
Powerful. That's powerful.
You know, because we're dying tonight.
Right.
But I'm gonna learn about him now that we're here, about who he is and why he saved me.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't have all the theology. He didn't have all the answers. He didn't walk the straight line.
Systematic theology.
You say he wasn't an Adventist.
Yeah.
He wasn't Lutheran. He wasn't Episcopalian. He was a thief on the cross. You see what I'm saying? Like I think we overcomplicate salvation, man. It's like that story's there for that reason, I think, alone, to uncomplicate the gift that God provides on the cross. You know,
you think about Judas. Judas spent 3 years with Jesus every single day, walking with him, listening to him, seeing miracles, all these different things, and he's like, "Yeah, nah, I'm good." The thief on the cross was like, none of that. He maybe heard a story or two. Oh, there's this guy, like, 30 minutes down the road that just heals. Okay, all right, but I don't know who that is. Ends up on the cross next to Jesus. Is like, I believe
this dude's different.
I think you're different. Wherever you're going, let me go with you.
I think as a tie-in, and this is just my imagination, but I think I'm imagining him seeing Jesus and the way he was conducting himself in that moment. And he was like, I want to be like that. Like, that's a man right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what a man looks like. And that's what sacrifice looks like. Who knows what Jesus might have been saying, or he heard, or he was seeing
talking about him, people talking,
and then he was like, wait a minute, maybe this is the Son of God. Like, what's going on here? So I think that's a beautiful. I love that story, man, because it's so simple. It's simple. Like, wait a minute, no, that guy, he just said, okay, I want to go. I believe. He said, okay, let's go.
That's it.
It's awesome.
You're coming. Man, and that's the invitation for you. You know, if you're listening or watching, it's never too late. It's never too late to run to God, and God, the beautiful, the prodigal son, he's always waiting with open hands and open arms. And just like the thief on the cross, he's in the middle of his own pain, looks over and says, all right, bet, you can come. I'll pick you up. When I come back, I'll pick you up. Don't worry about it. I'll come for you. So awesome. So it's a beautiful lesson there. So hopefully, if you're listening or watching, that you can take that promise as well and ask Jesus to come into your life. We do want to remind everyone, as earlier, if you want to get that free book, maybe a second one, depending how well you do, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you listen to your podcast, rate us, comment, subscribe, send us a DM that you want that book, tag someone.
And in that DM, send us a topic that you want us to discuss.
And send us a topic.
And it's the first person to do this.
First person to do this, So we'll check that out.
Okay.
But great convo, guys. Yeah. Great convo. We'll talk. We'll keep talking on the next one for y'all. Make sure first one there. Come on, you get a free book. Check it out.
I bought the book. The book is worth buying, so if you're getting it for free, man, that's nice.
I mean,
wow. Is it okay for me to go ahead and comment and subscribe?
You can comment. You can comment all you want. I don't know.
I tried, guys. I tried.
We'll try. All right, y'all. We'll talk to y'all next time. Until then, peace.